Hey guys, so I recently saw the newest Transformers film, Transformers 1. I've talked about Transformers a couple of times on this channel, not as much as I probably would have liked, because I just haven't. Whenever I make a video, Transformers just doesn't usually come up, but I have talked about it in the past, especially Transformers Prime, which I think I've mentioned is my favorite version of Transformers. But despite not talking about it, I have been a big fan of the Transformers franchise since at least the first Bayformers film. While I did see some episodes of Transformers Animated, as that cartoon was currently airing at the time, Bayformers 1 was what really got me into the franchise, and, eventually I would, get into War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron and Transformers Prime. I would come to love Animated, and watch Beast Wars, collect the toys. I can even show you some, as background footage, just to show that I'm not some fake fan. I have been following this franchise for a while. My brother was also big into Transformers, so when I got into it, he was really happy, and, we had that connection. So I have a very big love for the Transformers franchise. So, of course, I wanted to see how this new movie would turn out, and while the marketing for it wasn't always the best, I was still curious enough to see the film, especially as the trailers got better. And I saw it last night. So what did I think about it? Honestly, and I know this may be a hot take, I think this might be the best Transformers film ever? Ever? Don't get me wrong, I think the 86 film is better than it has any right to be, just being, it was meant to be just a way to advertise new toys, but still ended up being, a sci-fi animation classic, and actually a really good film on its own merits, not for nothing. It's, the 86 film, surprisingly, is, a decent film. And while I do have nostalgia for Bayformers, and Bumblebee is also a pretty damn good movie as well, I honestly think that Transformers 1 blows them all out of the water. Is this my favorite iteration of Transformers? Does it top Transformers Prime? No, but some of the people that worked on Transformers Prime did actually have a hand in this, and mainly Brian Tyler, the composer, and you can tell because, there's a lot of Transformers Prime sounding music, and as someone who loves me some Transformers Prime, I was okay with that. But Transformers 1 is fantastic. I think it is easily the best Transformers movie. I will be going into a little bit of spoilers about the film, so I just want to say that now, because even though I did kind of talk about it, it's time to derail this video. I'm not actually talking about Transformers 1 and my thoughts on it as the main part of this video. I just wanted to set the stage for, you should go see this movie. It's fantastic. If you're at all a Transformers fan, or even if you're not, see the movie. It's not doing very well at the box office, unfortunately, and I wanted to open the video with this because I wanted to say, even if it only gets to, 2 people, see Transformers 1. It has my wholehearted recommendation, and there's many, many more respected film critics that are saying, oh no, this is actually, really, really good. So even if you don't take my word for it, there's plenty of other people that you can take their word for it. It's fantastic. Go see it. Seriously, it's really good. But I wanted to talk about something that has been bothering me about, really not so much Transformers 1 specifically, because honestly, I think this film, no matter what Paramount and Hasbro say, is doing its own thing. But it's more a problem with Transformers, the film series as a whole, not so much with, the TV shows and all of the other continuities or any of that. This is strictly a problem with the films. And it's what Hasbro and Paramount has been doing, this lie that they keep trying to feed us, that I honestly don't know why they keep doing it, because it's so obviously not true, yet they keep pretending that it is. So one big point of confusion with Transformers 1 is that it is connected to the live-action films, it's connected to Bayformers, it's connected to Rise of the Beasts and Bumblebee, and I'm just going to set the record straight. It's not. Hasbro and Paramount have said that it is. It's not. There are so many continuity errors that just don't make any sense, and this is where I'm going to get into spoilers for the film, so if you haven't seen the movie, stop watching here if you want to. I also will be giving spoilers for some of the other Transformers films, including Rise of the Beast, since that's probably the film with, like, the biggest showcase of this problem. So if you haven't seen either, please stop watching now. Okay? Alright, cool. So, Sentinel Prime is in Transformers 1. He is a major antagonist in the film. I would even say he is the main antagonist of the film. And he is killed near the end of the film, like most villains are in movies. But if you know anything about Bayformers, particularly Dark of the Moon, then you know that you know that Sentinel Prime is in that movie, and he was a mentor to Optimus, supposedly, and he is the villain of that movie. So, why are there two Sentinels? And some people might say, oh, well, maybe they meant Zeta Prime. It's like, because remember, in the Align continuity, there is Sentinel and Zeta Prime are one and the same, so maybe they're treating it... No. Zeta Prime is also in Transformers 1, as his own character, his own Prime. They took the name and separated it from Sentinel, and they are now two different characters. And Zeta is killed by Sentinel in the film in a flashback. So that's out the window. So there really are, if we're taking this movie as canon, just two Sentinel Primes for some reason. And in Rise of the Beasts, there's other continuity errors. As an example, Unicron. This is probably the biggest headache. So, in Transformers The Last Knight, they do what Transformers Prime did, where Unicron is the Earth's core. This was a concept that was invented for Transformers Prime, and they took it for the movies because Transformers Prime is popular. You know, it was a very well-received show. So, you know, they just kind of took it and ran with it. Similar to what they did with Lockdown. With Age of Extinction. So, they did that, but with Rise of the Beasts, Unicron is his own separate entity. He's not the Earth's core, which doesn't really make any sense. Now, some people might argue, well, it's a time-traveling Unicron. I mean, think about it. Unicron should have the ability to time travel, despite the fact that that's never really been a thing, as far as I'm aware. I don't know, if there's any Transformers continuity that has had Unicron as a time traveler. I know there has been time travel and time traveling in Transformers with Beast Wars, and there was a Prime that could time travel. I forget his name. I know he was in Cybertron. But, like, it's one of those things where I know time travel is a thing. Unicron, I don't think, has ever been a time traveler. Galvatron has. I don't think Unicron has. So, you know, and also, like, if we're to assume that this is a time-traveling Unicron, this means that in the future, with the Bayformers films, I guess Unicron, there's a timeline where Unicron did succeed in kind of reviving himself, stretched his arm and legs out a bit, destroyed Earth, everyone died. And the Unicron we see in Rise of the Beasts is that Unicron, but we also have a Unicron who's also the Earth's core. You see how convoluted this is? It's just... I mean, look, it's a theory, it's possible, it's true, but I highly doubt it. It's just... I don't think general audiences would really care for that story, because it's so convoluted. It's such a convoluted, timey-wimey bullshit. And it's like, no, it's pretty clear that the people making Rise of the Beast had no intention of making this link to Bayformers. Even though Hasbro and Paramount definitely try to, and at times Rise of the Beast especially tries to. It even uses music from the movies, from the Bayverse. Also, I don't really know where to fit this in, so I just want to make another side tangent. So, we all know that Transformers 1 is kind of a dumb, weird, confusing name because, you know, Transformers 1, and then we have the 86 film, which is also Transformers 1, and Bayformers 1, which is also Transformers 1. So from now on, I'm just going to call the 86 film G1, or the 86 film. I'm going to call Bayformers 1, Bayformers 1, and then I'm going to call Transformers 1, Transformers 1, just for the sake of making it easier to distinguish between them. So I just thought I'd mention that because it'll get confusing. So when I talk about Bayformers 1, the first Bayformers film, I am talking about Bayformers. I'm just going to call it Bayformers and Bayformers 1, okay? Cool? Cool. All right, back to the other tangent. Yeah, it's like so obvious that these films are just not connected. And Hasbro and Paramount keep telling everyone that they are, probably because they want to retain the Bayformers audience, even though, if I'm being honest here, they're not doing a very good job. Because Bumblebee did well, but that was only because it was a very low-budget film. So its box office being, like, what, 200 million was okay because it still made back all of its money, because it was such a low-budget effort. They clearly just kind of rushed it out the door because they realized this whole Transformers cinematic MCU thing wasn't going to work after last night. It was basically luck that it got a good team behind it and ended up being good. Rise of the Beasts barely recouped its budget, but still is probably a stinker in the eyes of Hasbro Studios because, well, there's probably like 100 million in marketing they put into it and they just didn't make it back. And now Transformers 1, unfortunately, is also not doing well at the box office. And I hope it gets better. I hope it makes a comeback. Because it is a really great film, but at the same time, if they're trying to retain the Bayverse audience, I don't think they're doing a very good job. So, you know, that whole argument that they're trying to retain the Bayformers fans, I think is just stupid, because even if it is true, and it probably is, they're probably saying this stuff to retain an audience, it doesn't really matter when it's not working. Especially after The Last Knight. If anything, The Last Knight irreparably damaged the Bayverse, like, so much. It's basically the rise of Skywalker for the Bayformers universe, which I know sounds like, it sounds like you're exaggerating, but it's like, no. This was a really big stinker. Like, they had plans for films after this, like tons of films after this, and they all got scrapped. There was a writing staff made to make a cinematic universe, and it just, all of these plans, tons of money was wasted because of Last Night's failure. It was just like, it was a huge, colossus failure. Bumblebee literally was just, it only got made because it was so far in production that they had to release it, otherwise they were going to lose more money. They were already hemorrhaging money. It's why the Transformers films had such a delay in between Bumblebee and Rise of the Beasts, and COVID probably didn't help either, but still, it's because, quite frankly, they didn't really know how to utilize Bumblebee's surprise success. They had Bumblebee and they had a decent foundation to work off of for a reboot, but also it was meant to be a prequel, so it's like, is it a prequel, is it a reboot? Well, we don't know. Let's just do more. And that's kind of what they did, and they keep trying to tie it into the Bay universe, and it just doesn't make any sense. And they're doing the same thing with Transformers 1, despite Transformers 1 probably being the most blatant example of, no, this is its own continuity. This is not tied to the Bay universe. It never was supposed to be tied to the Bay universe. And, you know, what's even, like, funnier is that the writer and the director of the film, I don't know if they were two separate people or not, but the people making the movie itself have said that it is its own continuity, but then backtracked, most likely because someone at Paramount or Hasbro Studios, most likely Lorenzo, told them to backtrack on it and say, oh, no, this is totally connected to Bayformers and Rise of the Beasts and Bumblebee. It's totally connected. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, you could make an argument that it's connected to Bumblebee and Rise of the Beasts, at least. I don't think it is. I think it's too different. But you could make an argument. But Bayformers? No. This is very clearly its own continuity. And if I'm being honest here, assuming they don't go with the time travel shenanigans for Unicron, like I just mentioned, which I think audiences would just be confused by, I think the confusion is arguably hurting Transformers more than it's helping. Hasbro and Paramount need to just bite the bullet and say, no, these are not connected to the Bay films. And I know some people are saying, oh, but Michael Bay's production studio is involved, and Michael Bay is still a producer, and it's like, look, I'm not saying we have to get rid of these people. Transformers 1 is a great film. Yes, Michael Bay produced it. who gives a shit? It's still great. I'm not asking for Bay to be, like, removed entirely. He did sort of make the franchise in film what it is known for. So I'm not saying, like, we have to, like, get rid of that studio or anything, or, like, fire people or whatever. I'm saying that they need to recognize that them trying to tie these very different films to each other and to Bayverse is hindering these films. And I think it is. I mean, look at the box office numbers for Rise of the Beasts and Transformers 1. And also, let's be frank here. While the Bayverse has gotten a bit of a vindication from fans who grew up with it, like me, kind of, let's be frank here. Besides the first Bayformers film, the other films really aren't that great. They're really not. Dark of the Moon is really the only other Bayverse film that I can think of that has any semblance of anything worth watching. Revenge of the Fallen I like, but it's just a putrid, awful film. It is terrible. I love it because it's terrible, and I grew up with it. So it's a matter of nostalgia and being a guilty pleasure, but it is not a good movie. Even Michael Bay thinks that film is a piece of dog shit. Just an absolute turd. And then you have Age of Extinction and Last Night, which somehow are even worse. And it's just like, I think them tying it to this legacy is giving people the wrong impression. Because keep in mind, people might say, oh, but the director said, like, we should take the director's word. But keep in mind, most of the interviews and most of the marketing material will probably focus on what Paramount and Hasbro say. And they keep marketing it as a continuation. But considering how Bayverse doesn't have a very good reputation, and how Last Night turned out, and how they keep kind of being like, oh, it's connected, but it's not really. And it's like, it's just confusing people. It's giving people just such a confusing perspective of what these films even are, when it really should just be this simple. It is its own thing. It is its own story. It is a reboot. Stop pretending it's not. Especially in Transformers 1's case. Like with Rise of the Beasts, one of the biggest problems for me is that despite the fact that this is clearly its own continuity, it keeps trying to tie itself into Transformers. Transformers 1, thankfully, does not do this. Transformers 1 is pretty dead set on being its own thing. Rise of the Beast isn't. It's a very confused film. It doesn't really know whether it's a Bayformers film or not. And while I do personally kind of like it still, I gotta be honest here, that's probably the film's biggest problem. That and its short runtime. I also think it's, like in Rise of the Beast's case, they try to mimic Michael Bay so much, but they don't really come up with their own style. They try to find this weird halfway point between Bumblebee's designs and Bayverse designs, and it's like, maybe you should just do your own thing. Stop pretending it's tied to the Bayverse. This would allow you more story freedom and more creative freedom. Now, can you take elements from the Bayverse and put them into other films? Absolutely. Transformers Prime did that. Prime is fantastic, and better for it. But with Transformers 1, it's pretty dead set on, no, this is its own thing. Hasbro and Paramount are saying some bullshit. It is its own story. But, like, again, they keep saying that it's, like, part of Bayformers, and it's not. It's just, I don't know. I think you're giving people the wrong expectations. And, with Transformers 1 pretty much cementing itself as its own continuity, despite what Hasbro and Paramount and Lorenzo are saying, I think they really kind of just need to realize, it's like, no, we should stop trying to connect it to the Bayverse. Yes, Bay is involved in the production. Yes, he's producer. But I don't really think Michael Bay would give a shit if you just outright say, yes, the Bayformers universe, it's still its own thing, it still exists, it's part of the multiverse, but it is not connected to Rise of the Beasts. It's not connected to Bumblebee, because Bumblebee also does not connect well to Transformers 1 or Bayformers 1 at all. It doesn't connect to either of them. Stop feeding us this lie that Transformers 1 and Rise of the Beasts and the Bayverse and all of it's all one continuity. It's not. It is so obvious that it's not. Bumblebee was said to be a reboot, but then they sort of changed their minds. But it's like, no, Bumblebee has so many discrepancies. It's a reboot, and Rise of the Beast is the sequel to Bumblebee. But those two films are not connected to the Bayverse. And while Transformers 1 could be linked to Bumblebee and Rise of the Beasts, I honestly think it's a bigger headache to connect them with how different they are. So no, let me just set the record straight for anyone going in. Transformers 1 is not connected to the Bayverse, no matter what Paramount says, no matter what Lorenzo says, no matter what Hasbro says. It does not matter. Alright? It is not connected to those films. Rise of the Beast and Bumblebee are also not connected. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this because it's been bothering me for so long. I was going to make this before I watched Transformers 1, but I just didn't do it for, because I'm lazy. And I was lazy and busy. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's not entirely not true, but anyway, I'm actually happy I waited to watch Transformers 1 first. 1, because it's a fantastic movie, and 2, because I think it really, drives this whole point home that Hasbro and Paramount, going forward with the Transformers film series, they need to just kind of leave the Bayverse alone, The Bayverse can still be, exist. It's still technically, canon in its own continuity, but they need to treat that as, its own canonicity. And it's we have a new continuity for both the animated and live-action films separately. Transformers 1 is its own continuity, and Bumblebee and Rise of the Beasts are their own continuity. They are separate from Bayverse, and they need to do that because it's just confusing people and it's giving people the wrong idea. And I do genuinely think it is, because Rise of the Beasts' connections to Bayverse isn't helping with its box office, considering the reputation that Bayverse has. And I don't really think it's helping Transformers 1 either, especially with how confusing it is. You could also argue that the awful first trailer for Transformers 1 also didn't help either, and that is very true. That first trailer was not a good representation of the movie. If you thought the first trailer looked bad, trust me, it's not. The first trailer is a bad showcase of a great film. Think of it like a Pixar trailer. Pixar trailers are always terrible, 9 times out of 10, and don't represent the films most of the time. Sometimes they do. Most of the time, though, no. Because I remember Inside Out had an awful, awful trailer. But then when the movie came out, it was fantastic. So, it was one of Pixar's best movies in years. So, just trust me. It's a great film. You should go see it. It's not connected to Bayverse. Hasbro and Paramount, they need to stop pretending it is. They need to stop pretending it is. It's stupid. Anyway, I am Lokai, signing out. Before I go, I do want to give one last update. I might actually be returning to videos. Things have kind of, I talked about how things in my personal life might slow down a bit for me to have enough time to actually get back to making videos. And they're starting to slow down. They might speed up again, but we'll see. All I'm saying is I would like to return to making videos. I think I might have the time to do so you might be seeing me sooner than you think. I'll keep you guys updated if that's the case or not, but I have a good feeling. Hopefully that's not wrong. Anyway, see ya.